Keep me updated as they learn more. You're going to ask me to speculate. Understandably, you'd ask me to speculate about what happened, why it happened, and I'm not going to do that now because we don't have all the information. Not until I have all the facts. But I do know this. As president, I'm going to use all the resources at my disposal to keep the American people safe. As I said, at this moment, a great deal remains unknown, but three things are certain. First, 10 lives have been lost, and more families have been shattered by gun violence in the state of Colorado. And Jill and I are devastated, and the feeling, I just can't imagine how the families are feeling, the victims whose futures were stolen from them, from their families, from their loved ones, who now have to struggle to go on and try to make sense of what's happened. Less than a week after the horrific murders of 8 people and the assault on the AAPI community in Georgia, while the flag was still flying half-staff for the tragedy, another American city has been scarred by gun violence and the resulting trauma. And the state, I even hate to say it because we're saying it so often, my heart goes out. Our hearts go out for the survivors, who had to flee for their lives and who hid, terrified, unsure if they would ever see their families again, their friends again. The consequences of all this are deeper than I suspect we know. By that I mean the mental consequences, the feeling of, anyway, it's just been through too many of these. The second point I want to make is my deepest thanks to the heroic police and other first responders who acted so quickly to address the situation and keep the members of their community safe. And to state the obvious, I commend the exceptional bravery of Officer Eric Talley, and I send my deepest condolences to his family, his close family and 7 children. You know, when he pinned on that badge yesterday morning, he didn't know what the day would bring. I want everybody to think about this. Every time an officer walks out of his or her home and pins that badge on, the family member that they just said goodbye to wonders whether they'll subconsciously, will they get that call, the call that his wife got. He thought he'd be coming home to his family and his 7 children. But when the moment to act came, Officer Tully did not hesitate in his duty, making the ultimate sacrifice in his effort to save lives. That's a definition of an American hero. And thirdly, I want to be very clear. And this is the one thing I do know enough to say on in terms of what's happened there. While we're still waiting for more information regarding the shooter, his motive, the weapons he used, the guns, the magazines, the weapons, the modifications that apparently have taken place to those weapons that are involved here, I don't need to wait another minute, let alone an hour, to take common sense steps that will save the lives in the future and to urge my colleagues in the House and Senate to act. We can ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines in this country once again. I got that done when I was a senator. It passed. It was law for the longest time. And it brought down these mass killings. We should do it again. We can close the loopholes in our background check system, including the Charleston loophole. That's one of the best tools we have right now to prevent gun violence. The Senate should immediately pass, let me say it again, the United States Senate, I hope some are listening, should immediately pass the 2 House-passed bills that close loopholes in the background check system. These are bills that receive votes of both Republicans and Democrats in the House. This is not and should not be a partisan issue. This is an American issue. It will save lives, American lives, and we have to act. We should also ban assault weapons in the process. I'll have much more to say as we learn more, but I wanted to be clear. Those poor folks who died left behind families that leaves a big hole in their hearts. And we can save lives. increasing the background checks so that they're supposed to occur, and eliminating assault weapons and the size of magazines. I don't know all the detail yet on that. But I'll be talking to you more later today or in the next couple of days about what else we know. May God bless you all and those families who are mourning today because of gun violence in Colorado and Georgia, all across the country. We have to act so there's not more of you, there's fewer of you as time goes on. Thank you so much.
Will you introduce new gun legislation, Mr. President?
Do you plan to?
President Biden there acknowledging the questions that remain still unanswered in that investigation into what happened in Boulder, Colorado, that shooting that left 10 people dead, honoring the victims, the lives lost, and their families, and taking this moment to call on what he described as common sense gun reforms. I want to bring in now White House correspondent Jeff Bennett. And Jeff, this is an issue that is not unfamiliar to President Biden, as he alluded to.
That's right. As a senator back in 1994, he and Senator Dianne Feinstein helped bring about legislation that put in place a 10-year ban on assault weapons. And you heard the president say this shouldn't be a partisan issue. It's an American issue. Well, it certainly is a partisan issue, unfortunately, this issue of gun control. It's been some 27 years since Congress enacted comprehensive gun control. And this issue right now runs headlong into the sort of situation in the Senate. It would require 60 votes for President Biden's desire for Congress to act on this to become a reality. And right now, it doesn't appear that Republicans would join with Democrats in doing just that. But I think the palpable sense of frustration and resignation in President Biden's voice today is really noteworthy. It's the second time, Hallie, in 4 days that he's had to address the nation following a mass shooting. He said that there have been too many of these. And so, yes, as a senator, Joe Biden certainly has experience working with lawmakers in passing gun legislation, but a lot has changed in those 2 or 3 decades since he once served in the upper chamber. And so there really is no clear timeline. There are no clear next steps for how Congress would go about passing any sort of common sense, as he put it, gun control, Hallie.
And the president referencing he will have more to say on this in the coming days. Jeff, thank you. Aaron McLaughlin is at the scene of that shooting in Boulder. And Aaron, just this morning, just today, we are learning more about the victims here.
Get this done as soon as possible so they could identify.
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. And this is a community in mourning. As you can see behind me, across from the grocery store in question is a growing makeshift memorial. People arriving there to leave flowers and pay their respects for the 10 lives lost in yesterday's horrific attack. This morning in that press conference, the police chief calling out each and every one of their names and ages, ranging from their 20s to their 60s, including 51-year-old Eric Talley. He's the father of 7. He was a first responder, 11-year police veteran. He was the first to arrive on the scene, shot and killed this morning, remembered for his kindness. Take a listen.
His actions.
I can tell you that he's a very kind man, and he didn't have to go into policing. He had a profession before this, but he felt a higher calling. And he loved this community, and he's everything that policing deserves and needs. He cared about this community. He cared about Boulder Police Department. He cared about his family. And he was willing to die to protect others.
FBI, local agencies, all of them.
We were actually speaking last night with his father, and his father told us that he was actually considering leaving the police force because of the dangers, because he was the father of 7 children, and he knew what was at stake and wanted to keep them all safe. One of 10 stories that we'll be hearing over the coming days and weeks. Holly?
10 families grappling with what has happened. Aaron McLaughlin, thank you. Justice correspondent Pete Williams has more on the investigation into the shooting. And Pete, we know the suspect is in custody. We are now learning more about him. What can you tell us?
He's 21 years old. He's from the Denver suburb of Arvada. His name is Ahmad Al-Aliwi Alissa. And what we're told now from the court documents that have just within the last few minutes been filed, according to the police, after the initial shooting with Officer Talley, the police say that Alyssa surrendered. According to the court documents, he walked backward to the SWAT team to be taken into custody and had removed most of his clothing except for his shorts. He asked to speak to his mother, the police report says, and had a gunshot wound to his upper thigh. He had removed a green tactical vest, a semi-automatic handgun, a pair of jeans, and a dark-colored long shirt, in addition to the semi-automatic AR-15 style rifle. And the court documents also say that he recently purchased the pistol, a Ruger AR-556 pistol, buying it on March 16th of 2021. He's been charged with 10 counts of murder, Hallie.
Pete Williams, thank you for that reporting. We're going to have much more on the developments out of Boulder coming up tonight on NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt. For now, I'm Hallie Jackson in Washington. For all of us here at NBC News, thank you for watching. Good day.